Welcome on in, boys and girls. This is the WyoNation Roundup. I am your host, Chad Smith, and I am joined tonight by Mr. Bryan Stevens.
What's happening?
And tonight's going to be a little different. I think you're probably all sick and tired of talking about that oblong-shaped ball that gets tossed in the air, sometimes kicked. So we are here to talk a little round ball.
Yes, basketball practice kicked off today, and we figured what better time to kind of preview the basketball team, go over the schedule. There has been a lot of talk on the schedule, and there's some controversy, but we'll dive into it. We'll see what we can unpack on this.
Yeah, so we'll talk a little schedule, maybe a little player talk if there's time, and then we'll spend a little time at the end probably on some conference realignment talk from a basketball angle, because it's all been football focused, but basketball plays a major part in this as well. So welcome on in. If you are new to the show, welcome. Please subscribe so you know when we're going live, because we have lives, and sometimes we don't schedule these things on a regular basis, but we are here tonight. So hit that like, hit that subscribe so you get the alerts on when we're going live, and participate in the chat as we're going through this. Really, we do this for you. So send in your chats. You can do so on the YouTube channel as well as on the Twitter. Send in your questions and your comments. And we had a great post game this last Saturday after a Wyoming football win. So I think this will be equally as good as we look at the basketball schedule. I'm gonna take a drink there and let's get going. So should we just get at it? Sounds like
let's jump in, man.
Bryan's got a lot of data and a lot of analysis here. So we'll just bring it up and we'll kind of take this into notes. We'll see what he has. Really, this is Bryan's show. He's done all the research here. I'm just here to guide the ship. So first game of the season, October 25th, Bryan, just 23 days away, is an exhibition game against the College of Idaho.
Yes, the College of Idaho Yotes, which they're an NAI team. They're out of the Cascade Conference. And before we really start getting into it, one of the big gripes we've all heard, we've seen it on the message boards, we've seen it on social media, people aren't real happy with the home non-conference schedule. It's, we're not getting a DU, we're not getting a Colorado, we're not getting, a lot of these teams that we've been able to get to come to Laramie. And there is a method to this madness. So we'll get into that. But first, let's do a quick dive on the team. We already did a deep dive on all the players, but we've only got 5 players coming back. 2 of them redshirted last year. So we've only got 3 players that had any kind of game experience coming back. Mm-hmm. And one of those 3 players is Court Roberson, and that's not a lot of game experience. No. I love Court. Every time that guy gets in the game, it's awesome. Everybody loses their minds. And I hope we see a lot of them this year, because that means we're doing well.
100%.
Yeah. So College of Idaho, they're a good NAIA team. And as we saw with Mason Walters last year, good NAIA players can play at any level. These guys went 32-4 last year. They lost in the Final Four of the NAIA tournament, and they were the 2023 champs of the NAIA tournament.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. Their top player did transfer out, Jack O'Neill. He went to Idaho State, but they are returning 13 players from that team. So I think one of the reasons Coach Wicks is bringing these guys in is because this is a veteran team that knows how to win. They do compete at a lower level, but this will give the Cowboys a taste of what they're going to see when we get into conference play this year with the high-level teams that play in the Mountain West. Moving on to the next. So that's our exhibition game. The season officially opens on Monday, November 4th. We play a D2 school from the Northern Sun Conference, the Concordia St. Paul Bears. Fun fact, last year, one of their leading scorers was John Grigsby.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he ended up transferring out to Crown College. But Grigsby, that's where he ended up after he left Wyoming. He was one of the 3 people that transferred out. They have 14 returning players. They weren't as good last year. They went 10-18, so not a stellar year. But still, this is a squad that has played together for a long time. They have some good players. They do a good job, and it's a team that's cohesive. And I think the theme you're going to see on our home non-conference is we're going to play teams that are going to play good fundamental basketball. They're going to play well as a team, and they're going to be winnable games. Because if you look at the schedule overall, when we get into conference play, there are no breaks.
No.
It's really ugly. So I think that's kind of the reasoning behind how this schedule was put together. Moving on to Sunday the 10th, we've got the Tennessee State Tigers. They are a D1 school. They're in the Ohio Valley Conference, went 18-15 last year. They are much in the same boat as Wyoming on the returning player front. They have one returning player. They had 7 players transfer out. The rest of them graduated. They have 15 new faces on the team this year. Wow. So nobody really knows what it's going to look like. But it's a team that they were right about where Wyoming was last year. I mean, last year Wyoming was they're about a 500 team. I forget what our record was off the top of my head. But I mean, that's about what we were last year with a new team. So, sure. And we were 13-17 last year. So they were a touch better than us last year. But anybody that says they were mad about how last season went is lying, man. They are lying. Everybody got really high on this team at the beginning of the year because we were going through the non-conference and we were doing a good job and the team was starting to come together. And then it got rough when we got to conference play. And it got rough when we got to conference play because the net rankings in our conference are bonkers. We'll get into it as we get into the conference play part of the schedule. But, I mean, San Diego State had a net of 20 out of 84 teams, 362 teams, 20.
Yeah, the Mountain West.
That's why we're seeing this.
Probably the strongest they've been in a long time, for sure, last year.
Yeah. So. Speaking of strong teams, Texas Tech is next to the Jeff Linder Revenge Tour. I really hope we win this game. It's going to be hard. It's going to be real tough. Texas Tech went 23-11 last year. They were a 6th seed in the NCAA tournament. Their net was 27. They did lose in the first round to NC State, which was a big surprise to a lot of people. But, I mean, NC State went to the Final Four, so that's saying a lot that Texas Tech kept that one close. They do have 5 returning players. They had 6 transfer out. They have 7 new players, one of which is the reigning Mountain West Freshman of the Year, JT Topping.
Oh, okay. That's where he ended up.
Yeah, he ended up at Texas Tech with Linder. He's going to be good there. This is going to be a good team. This is going to be a really tough road game, which lends itself back to why our home schedule looks the way it looks. When we've got so many new players, we need to make sure that, these guys have a chance to gel, have a chance to run their offense and get together.
100%. And good job there on the cat patrol.
Yeah, I got a 15-pound cat that really wants to be in
the cat wants to be on the show, but once we get to a school with a cat mascot, he's more than welcome to join us.
I mean, he was too late. We already talked about the Tennessee State Tigers.
That's true.
All right, moving on, the Saturday after the Texas Tech game, which, by the way, no bye weeks in here so far. The first bye we get is, after the Cancun Challenge. So games are packed in here. So Saturday, November 16th, we got out of the WAC, the Utah Tech Trailblazers. They have 6 returning players. 7 players that transferred out last year, 10 new faces. Their net wasn't great. They were an 11-20 team. They're a 285 team, but they're
D1.
Size. They are. They're D1.
Okay, I've never heard of them.
They used to be Dixie State.
Oh, okay. That makes sense now. Gotcha.
Yeah. Changed it over to Utah Tech, and they've had good years. They've had bad years. They've been hit by the transfer portal like we have. So it's a very similar team as compared to roster makeup as we have. But things are – it should be an interesting game, and it's a good chance for us to win some games too.
All right. Then we go next to Southeastern Louisiana.
Southeastern Louisiana, this is the first game of the Cancun Challenge. So the Cancun Challenge has kind of a strange makeup. The first round, every team plays at a home arena.
Okay, gotcha.
So Wyoming's got Southeastern Louisiana. We're playing them in Laramie. And then that next Tuesday, we'll go, and Tulane is the next team that we play in the Cancun Challenge. The day after that will be the final game. So it'll be championship, third place, and fifth place, I believe. So Southeastern Louisiana Lions, they're out of the Southland Conference. They went 15-17 last year, and that's kind of a theme you'll see on the Cancun Challenge, is that a lot of these teams have very similar net rankings to where Wyoming was at. Southeastern Louisiana and Beth Cookman are the two low-end ones. Wyoming's kind of right in the middle. The other teams that are in this tournament, we've got Belmont, Loyola Marymount, Tulane, who we're playing, Beth Cookman, Gardner-Webb, and North Dakota. So those are all the teams that we could be playing. As I said, we've got Southeastern Louisiana's 15-17, Tulane last year, 14-17. Their net very similar to Wyoming's. They come out of the American Athletic Conference. It's a good basketball conference. They ended up at 138. Wyoming ended up last year at, I believe it was 155. So should be a pretty good game. Tulane, 6 returning players, 9 new faces. So that, and on a neutral court, that will be an interesting one to watch. So day after Tulane, we have that last game of the Cancun Challenge, and then we come home and kick off conference play in early December.
Wow, yeah, that's way early.
I can't remember the last time that happened. And we kick it off with a bang because we've got Utah State, who was an 8 seed in the tournament last year and lost to Purdue, who was a really good team.
Yes.
Utah State does only have 5 returning players. They got hammered in the transfer portal this year, but Ian Martinez did come back. So they're still going to be they've still got some pretty great players on that team. They do have 9 new faces coming in, but we know that as Utah State does, they're a team that tends to reload.
Okay, so it might be a good time to catch them early in conference as opposed to late.
Yeah, and the way our schedule sets up, we've played a tough team in Texas Tech on the road. We've played a few teams that should be able to get our confidence up in, the exhibition game against College of Idaho, Concordia State. We've got Tennessee State, Utah Tech, and Southeastern Louisiana at home, all of which are winnable games, but not walks in the park by any means.
Sure. And then
after Utah State, we finally get a bye. So they are off for the next week and a half before they travel to Provo to the BYU Cougars.
Actually, Salt Lake. It's neutral court.
Oh, it is Salt Lake. I forgot about that. BYU is on paper the toughest team that we will face this year. They went 23-11 in the Big 12, which is a brutal basketball conference. So they did really well. They were a 6 seed in the tournament. They lost in the first round to Duquesne, which was a huge surprise.
Sure, but they did lose their coach Pope to Kentucky.
Yeah, they did lose Pope.
Yeah, so they got a new coach.
They did. They still have 7 players returning though.
Did they hire? I forget. Did they hire the former Laker guy? Or no?
Oh man, I can't remember. Just a sec, let me look.
Yeah, I'll look it up. I want to say that he was on the radar, but I think they promoted someone off their staff, perhaps. It's a good question. We should know these things before, but that's the beauty of live broadcasts. So you can answer these questions through the
it was the Phoenix Suns associate head coach Kevin Young.
Oh, okay. So they got a guy from the NBA to come in. Interesting.
They did.
Okay.
42 years old, and here Chad and I sit.
Yeah.
But BYU is going to be tough.
Yeah.
I hate them as much as any other Wyoming fan, probably more than most in the eastern half of the state. I hope we win it. Again, going to be a tough game. We don't have any gimmies on the schedule for a long time on the road. No road games or gimmies in Mountain West, but the conference is brutal this year.
Yeah, so a good test. So back-to-back road games. They're both in Utah.
Mm-hmm. But a week and a half apart, so we'll be back in Laramie in between.
Mm-hmm.
2 tournament teams too, an 8 seed and a 6 seed. Utah State did win a game. They ended up winning losing in the second round. BYU lost in the first, but both really, really good teams. So after they get back from Salt Lake City, make the drive down I-25, we've got Bellarmine, the Bellarmine Knights coming from the Atlantic Sun Conference. This is a bad team.
Yes.
They went 8-23 last year. They've got 10 returning players off an 8-23 team, 6 new faces. So we'll see how it goes. During the season, guys, we're kicking around the idea of previewing the upcoming games for the week during the season. I've got a lot of data we could really get into. We didn't want to make this a 4-hour show, so we decided to kind of keep it high level. But let us know if that's something you're interested in. Be happy to break down the team, break down some film, talk about the schedule, and really dive into basketball if you all are interested in it. Bellarmine is one of the schools on the schedule that I would be very disappointed if we lost that game.
Sure.
There are a lot of them on here that, like, again, we have so many new players. Like, it's going to be tough for me to say there should be a must-win game on the schedule. But if there is one, this is it.
One would think. So they're coming from Louisville, Kentucky. And yeah, they're not good.
Yeah,
they do. But I think, did Green Bay play them in basketball last year or the year before? Maybe that's how Sundance knows them. I can't remember.
Could be. Just a second. Let me look at Green Bay.
Yeah. Clint says breakdowns would be awesome. Yeah, so we'll see. There's some overlap, right, between football and basketball. But once football's over, we'll be free to do a lot more basketball this year. So I think it will be good for everybody.
Green Bay did not play Bellarmine last year.
Okay. Gotcha.
All right, moving on. The first road game that I would expect would be very winnable is at Cal State Fullerton.
Okay.
Cal State Fullerton Titans, they're a Big West school. Not a bad school. Went 14-18 last year, net of 235. But that's a team that we should be able to keep pace with and should be able to win the game. 7 returning players, 8 new faces, only had 3 transfer out. So this is going to be a fairly cohesive team that's got a lot of production returning.
Okay, and it is around the holiday time, so you never know.
Yeah, and that is the end of the non-conference. So before we really get into the conference slate, let's break down the non-conference one more time.
Yeah, talk about your thoughts and kind of why the schedule is put together, and then maybe why. I understand the criticism, but why might it be unfair in your opinion, perhaps?
I don't. The criticism is unfair because this is a brand new team. Our 3 players that have significant playing time that are returning are Kobe Newton, who, I mean, he had MRSA for like half the season last year. He was a good 3-and-D guy when he was playing during the season. I'm really glad that he came back, and he's going to be expected to be one of the leaders of the team.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Oleg Koyenets, who last year had his moments. There were a few games he did some really good things. A few games where you kind of wondered what he was doing, but he was a sophomore.
Yeah.
And the only other one that's returning that had any minutes, where did it go? Oh no, it's just those 2. It's Newton and Koyenets.
Yeah. On scholarship anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the guys that we're going to be expecting to lead the way. Obi Agbim coming from Fort Lewis. We saw how Akoya Platt did last year. I I expect that once he catches on, he's going to be a lot of the same type of player. Obviously, they're not going to be the same player, but they're similar in the way they play.
Sure, and I do have notes on that. So Sundance Wicks did give an interview maybe 3 weeks ago now, maybe 2, with Keith Kelly on the radio station in Cheyenne.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked him about like players he's excited about, and he did mention Obi by name, and did say that he mentioned he's a point guard. So I'd imagine that's your starting point guard.
Oh, I would be surprised if he wasn't.
Okay. Yep. So I didn't know if that was a surprise to you or not. I know when we previewed the team a long time ago, we weren't really quite sure who the point guard would be, but it sounds like it's going to be Agbin.
Yeah. We've got strong players coming in, but just because you have strong players coming in doesn't mean they know how to play together. We've seen it with Kentucky time and time again, where they get all these blue chip recruits that come in. They're great players individually, but they get together and sometimes it doesn't work. And that's why
Sure.
Calipari is such a good coach. He's able to get those guys to work together.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how Sonny does on this. I think I'm excited he's coming back. I can guarantee this year we are going to see some excitement off the bench and from the players during the games.
Oh, sure.
Last year, the bench really didn't get into it. I expect that to change immediately this year. So non-conference, again, we've got 6 home games. We've got 4 road games. 3 of those road games are against really tough opponents. Well, 2 of those road games against really tough opponents. The third one is Tulane, who is they're going to be tough, but it's winnable. It's a good schedule to get us set up. It's establishing winning at home. It's making sure that players know how to play on the road in a hostile environment, because we've got a lot of those in the conference. We've got the Pit, we've got the Forum. Gosh, I forget what they call half of these. Thomas and Max, a good one. Moby, I'm not going to say is a great arena, but when CSU's winning, they tend to show
Get
up.
loud.
Yeah, and pack 7,500 people into the building. So it's a good way to get the team teed up and ready to go for the season, because the first team we get into the Saturday after Christmas on the 28th is Nevada.
Okay, let's get the schedule back up. There she is.
Yeah, Nevada's got 8 players returning from last year, and they're going to be good. They were 34 in the net. They were a 10 seed. They lost in the first round to Dayton, but they were a good team last year, and they're going to continue to be a good team this year.
And who's coaching them these days? I always forget.
What's that?
Who's the coach at Nevada these days?
Oh, Alfred. Steve Alfred.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Okay.
Immediately after that, New Year's Eve in Laradice, we've got Boise State coming to town.
Nice.
So we start the tour of Pac-12 teams that we really want to rub their nose in it. Unfortunately, Boise's good. Boise's really good. 10 seed last year. They lost in the first 4 to Colorado. Colorado was a sneaky good team last year. They were a 26 in the net, 44 in Ken Palm, 56 in Evan Maya at the end of the season. 5 players returning, 8 new faces. They're going to be good. Clint, I agree. More conference home games during Christmas break is not ideal. Luckily, we do have that one away game on the 22nd, and we're not home right after New Year's either. So that just happens to be when basketball falls. I'm not a huge fan of it either. When Chad and I were in the band in college, we just have to drive back from Christmas break to get over to Laramie and play in the games. So we feel your pain. At least there's no big Monday games anymore.
Yeah, no more 10 o'clock p.m. tip-offs.
Oh, that's brutal, man. Hey, so after that, after Boise State comes to town on New Year's Eve, we ring in the new year, take a few days off, and then Saturday the 4th, head down to Colorado Springs to play Air Force. Air Force wasn't good last year, but Air Force is always tough with their Princeton offense. Always tough. That being said, they went 9-22 last year. However, and they did have their 2 best players transfer out. We're not going to see Ritus Petratus anymore, but we are going to see 15 returning players. They have 0 new faces this year. No new players coming into Air Force. There's
Interesting.
15 guys coming back. Much like the football team, they rely on consistency of players being in the program and knowing how this works. They're very disciplined. They're going to wear you down. That's their game.
Do they still have the DU coach? Did he go there a couple years ago? Is that right?
Yes. Yes, it is. Gosh, what's his name?
Yeah. I should just pull up the list myself.
Yeah, Joe Scott.
Joe Scott. That's it. Yep. So they gotcha. Yep. He's a good coach.
He is a good coach. So that's going to be tough. Playing in Clune is never easy. They are lower ranked than we were last year by 110.
Yeah.
So it's a winnable game, but no road games in the conference are easy. So we get done with Air Force, come home, and Tuesday we get a visit from New Mexico.
Whoosh.
It's going to be rough. They don't have Jamal Mashburn this year, but they do still have Dorian Dent. They're coming in. They lost in the first round to Clemson last year. They were an 11 seed, but they were a net of 22. They were criminally underrated. 8 returning players, 8 new faces. They're going to be good. Backing up New Mexico, we go on the road for our first repeat of a conference game. We've got Boise State.
So twice in 2 weeks almost.
Yeah, almost exactly 2 weeks apart.
Yeah.
We've got them on Tuesday, January 14th. We've already talked about them, but going into Boise to play is always a rough environment. The Broncos are good. And it'll be interesting to see how we fare at home versus how we fare on the road. That's going to be our first look at a common opponent on both ends. And then I'm really glad the university did this on Saturday again. Saturday the 18th, CSU comes to town. We took them down last year in one of the best comebacks that's ever happened in the NCAA. We're down, 11 with 54 seconds left.
Yeah. I mean, I still can't believe it. They can't believe it either.
I was there, man. It was great. The Sheep were a 10 seed last year. They did win their first 4 game, but then they lost their first round game to Texas. Texas was a really good team. CSU was really good too. They've lost a lot, but they were a 36 seed. They've got 5 returning players. They've got 10 new faces. The border war is always tough. It's much like football, throw the records out because the game's going to be hostile. I would expect that's right when students are getting back from Christmas break. It's going to be rowdy.
Yes, and especially now that they're leaving for supposedly greener pastures.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that later in the pod.
Yep.
So after CSU, we're going to travel out to Vegas, take on UNLV. UNLV was a good team last year, not as good as most of the rest of the conference. They were a 73 net. They made it to the NIT, made it to the quarterfinals before they lost. 21-13 was their record last year. I did not get to their returning players and their transfers. They did have a few go out. So I did break it down here somewhere.
All right, Ray looks that up. That's very good. We will wait for the information.
Yeah, I'm just.
But for those of you who are watching, I guess, I mean, how excited? Leave your comments. How excited are you to see, I guess, how this team is going to play with the schedule with Sundance Wicks steering the ship? As he said, I don't think energy is not going to be a problem. Because if you're not bringing the energy, you're probably not going to play.
I am personally very excited.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a coincidence that players started leaving when Wicks took the Green Bay job. I think he's a player's kind of coach. He's a really personable guy. He's a hell of a basketball coach still, though. He's going to do a great job. UNLV, they only lost Jackie Johnson and Shane Knoll from last year. They obviously had a few guys graduate, but they did bring in Jace Whiting from Boise and Julian Rishwain from Florida.
Okay, yeah.
Rishwain's going to be a good player for him. So in Vegas, Vegas loves basketball. They love the Revels. They love basketball. That's going to be a tough game. Staying out on the West Coast, we head to San Jose the Saturday after. San Jose, not a great team last year. 9-23, 243 net. They lost a ton of players. They lost Cardenas, who went to Boise State. Lost Humor. They lost so many players. It was a bloodbath there. That being said, I can't remember how we did last year in San Jose. I think we might have won.
I don't remember. I know it was close.
We did beat them in San Jose and at home. So that's one of the teams we beat twice last year. Might be the only team we beat twice. Nope, San Jose and Air Force were the two teams that we beat twice last year. Bruiser, I'm with you. I'm cautiously optimistic. 500 would be awesome. Just like last year, if we see a team that's competitive and cohesive, that comes out and plays well together, because we all saw in that, what was that preseason tournament we were in last year? The Myrtle Beach Invitational. When we saw them play St. Louis and we saw them play College of Charleston, like, that was a fun team to watch. They didn't win every game, as new teams together won't, but it was after San Jose, we are moving down the road, coming back to Laramie the Tuesday after, and we've got Fresno State at home. We beat Fresno State at home last year. We lost to them on the road. We had them back-to-back to end the season last year, which was super weird.
Yes.
They were a 233 net. They've got quite a few players that left too. Xavier Ducell, after his brief one-year stop in Nevada, is now at Fresno State.
Yep.
And he's one of those players I really don't want to like because he bailed on Wyoming. But I like his game, man. He's a good shooter, talks a little bit of trash, not too much, really good defender. I really wish Ducell was still on the team.
Then we follow that up with another California team.
Rhodey to San Diego State. They're the class of the conference. They're going to be the class of the Pac-12 when they move over there. 20 net. They were a 5 seed last year, made it all the way to the Elite 8 before they lost to the eventual champion UConn. Went 26-11, and they smoked us last year when we were in San Diego, 65-81. When we were at home against them, it was a much better game. Oh, no, we didn't play them at home last year. That must have been 2 years ago. Yeah, 65-81 in San Diego last year at Viejas. And they didn't come to Laramie last year, but they're going to have to come this year. So shove it, Aztecs. I can't wait to hear the whining about it. So after we get back from San Diego State, we turn around. We've got Utah State at home. So this will be 2 months to the day after we played them the first time. Both teams are probably going to look very different. So it'll be interesting to see how much different the teams look, as opposed to, Boise State, when we play them 2 weeks apart. There's not going to be a lot of growth on either side from that. 2 months apart is going to be really interesting to watch. Utah State's got a lot of new players coming in that are going to contribute too. So that'll be a good measuring stick to see how we grow on the season. The Saturday after that Utah State game, we've got UNLV. Only a couple weeks after we saw them in Vegas. Did we play UNLV at home last year? Was that the other one? We did. Lost to them by 6. So we were competitive last year. They're going to be a good team. Every team in the Mountain West is a good team. So, again, we'll see how we do. Tuesday, we go to the Pit at New Mexico, followed with a roadie the day after Valentine's Day to the Whale down in Fort Collins. Those are 2 pretty rough back-to-back road games.
Yeah.
And then we get a little bit of a break after that. Air Force comes to town on Tuesday the 18th, and San Jose after that on Saturday the 22nd. Those are going to be a couple of get-right games for us. Again, conference games, never easy. I've seen really good Wyoming teams lose to really bad Air Force teams and vice versa. There's no telling how it's going to go, but this is our chance to get rested up, healed up, back on the right track before we head to Nevada on Tuesday, February 25th. And then the game, I will almost definitely be at this one. March 1st, San Diego State comes to Laramie, and I sincerely hope the weather is just awful, like just so bad. Because they whine so much. Dutcher's not nearly as bad as Steve Fisher was, but Steve Fisher loathed coming to Laramie. And nothing would put a bigger smile on my face than them having every problem they possibly could getting to town and then coming to Laramie and getting spanked.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. And then just like last year, I don't know. It's a week later, but the last game is at Fresno State. Last year we lost by 4 after just destroying them. Oh no, we destroyed them in Fresno and then lost to them
at
in
home.
the tournament.
Yeah.
But that's our schedule. We did win Fresno home and road too last year. So that's our schedule this year. Our average net of our conference is absolutely ridiculous. We've got Utah State 38, Nevada 34, Boise 26, New Mexico 22, CSU 36, UNLV 76. It's bonkers, man. It's crazy.
Hard for a team.
That's really part of the reason why I think our non-conference schedule looks the way it does. These aren't gimme games by any means. I would say that Bellarmine is as close to a gimme game as we're going to get. But these are middle of the road teams that are a little lower tier than Wyoming was last year and is expected to be this year. I believe that Sonny put this schedule together to give this team some time to gel, to get cohesive, to learn to play with each other before they have to step it up for conference play.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So that is the schedule, and we'll see. I'm sure next year it will look a lot different because they'll have a lot more time, obviously, to put the schedule together. And then hopefully, like you said, we'll see.
And we won't have our head coach bailing on us after the transfer window is almost closed.
Yeah, it's kind of a problem.
I'm a little salty about that still.
As you should be. So let's see. So maybe to get into what you're saying about the schedule, I have a couple just notes from Sundance Wicks and his radio appearance. And what he said is that he really needs to early during the preseason is to test the toughness of this team. And he says he needs to make things hard, and he needs to force failure to see what he has to work with. And I think that's kind of the philosophy around this schedule. And he said so far during this was before official practice started, of course, but he said during the summer workouts, he learned that he had to stay on them to get them to play their best. So they're a group that needs maybe a little motivation, maybe a little tough love to keep their eye on the prize, to keep working hard. And he said that's really his goal, is to make sure that we are a tough basketball team, because that's what it's going to take to win games in this conference.
Yeah, and that's something we saw last year that we did really well. We had some good toughness to us. As the year went on, they did wear down. The bench got a little shorter than I think we would have liked last year. I don't think that's going to be a problem this year, because everybody's new. Everybody's going to be figuring it out at the same time. So there's not going to be as much of a pecking order even as there was last year.
Sure, yeah. It's going to be – you're going to earn your spot, I think, for sure.
One thing I forgot to mention on the Nevada games, we had a transfer that was coming to Wyoming, Yuto Yamanuchi Williams. He was coming from Portland to Wyoming, and when Linder left, he bailed, went to Nevada. So it'll be interesting to see how he plays in the league.
Yeah, that could sting a little, perhaps, but what happened. So we can't go with that. I guess other notes here that I'm looking at. We could talk about a little players if you want, or we can talk about conference expansion from a basketball view. What do you want?
Well, if we start talking about players, the two players that we've heard a lot of praise for in the offseason are Obi Agbim and Cole Henry. Cole Henry in particular is a guy that Sonny has called out at every interview he's done. Best estimation at 8:13 p.m. Mountain Time, he'll be the Cowboy MVP. As it stands right now, I think Cole Henry's the guy. He's a fifth-year player. He came from Northern Iowa. They're a good program. He's going to be a veteran presence. He's going to be a lot like Mason Walters was last year, I think. I think he's more of a true post player than Walters was. But that's going to be my bet for MVP this year is going to be Cole Henry. Who do you got?
Really? That's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I saw he played sparingly at Northern Iowa, but I don't know if he's the type of guy who's going to fill up the stat sheet enough to be the MVP. Would be my guess. But when I see highlights of this guy, he's like a poor man's Nikola Jokic in his passing. His passing is ridiculous for a big guy.
Yeah,
and so maybe
he's going to be averaging five assists a game from the post, which is nuts.
I think so, easily. Yeah. If you haven't, there's not much about him on YouTube, but you can go to YouTube and you can see his passing, and it's ridiculous. It's like, what? You're like, that guy's a center. He's a point center, just like Nikola is. So we'll see. He could be a secret weapon. Give us my prediction. Yeah, I will. I don't know. I would have two guys on my list, but I will tell you that Bryan, he had Henry rated at his most impressive player. Wicks did, and so Wicks talked about the new basketball manager they brought in. I think Patrick Stacey.
Oh yeah, their analytics guy, right?
Yeah, and he has like his own algorithm that he put together that measures player performance, efficiency, and Henry is number one in that algorithm. I'm going to go with the second player in their thing, and I like this guy too. His film, I think, is great, but Nesbitt, I think, he's going to be a player for us for sure.
This guy was a former Mr. Basketball from Kentucky. Do you know how good you have to be Mr. Basketball in Kentucky? So he played for the Wildcats for a couple years, had a few off the court issues. So guy needed to grow up a little bit. So hopefully coming to Wyoming, we're going to get 2 years out of him. He's a junior this year. I'm really excited to see what he can do.
Well, you've got the wrong guy, unfortunately.
Nesbitt?
Yeah, Nesbitt's from Southampton. He's from the north, not Southampton. I'm thinking of soccer. He's from Hampton via St. Louis.
Yeah, via Kentucky before that.
No, that was the other guy. Or am I crazy? Have I lost my mind? Is Nesbitt? I thought the other guy was. I forgot the guy from Kentucky was from. His name is. Hold on here. I don't even have the roster up. But no, Nesbitt played his last year at St. Louis. And then Hampton.
Oh, and he was Memphis before that. That's right.
Yep.
Sorry,
yep.
I am the wrong guy.
Yeah. Okay. I forget. Mr. Basketball is there too. So we have a former Mr. Basketball from Kentucky.
Yeah, that was Dante Allen.
Allen. That's
right.
It. There you go.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I think Nesbitt's going to get. I'm excited to see Dante Allen. One more guy I'm excited to see is Tuco Tynamo.
Yes. Him too.
He was good for Denver.
I think he'll be good too. So I think the biggest questions is who the playing time in those post positions at the 4 and the 5 spots and that rotation. I'm going to find fascinating to see who gets the playing time immediately and to see if it changes, because really we've got a lot of guys who can do the job. It's just a matter of how do the pieces best fit.
Yeah. Sean, I understand what you're saying. We do have 11 new players coming in
Yeah.
this year.
And even Bryan got the wrong guy. Yeah, he thought. So it's an easy mistake because it's hard to remember, especially when they haven't played yet, right? We haven't formed any bonds with these players. But we've mentioned this before. I don't think anything's been posted yet. Probably soon is that they are doing a docu-series during this practice as they started practice. And I'd imagine, I don't know any details. I'd imagine it's going to just be on the website there on gowyo.com. But they're going to be doing some like behind the scenes docu-series for this basketball team. And he said it specifically so the state of Wyoming can get to know these guys.
That's great.
Yep.
That's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Say a couple more things to note on the schedule. We're playing the Border War on the 15th in Fort Collins. The next day we've got Utah Tech in Laramie. Also, the Boise State game in Laramie for football is on November the 23rd. We've got Southeastern Louisiana the night before. So that'd be a good if you're going to make a roadie to Laramie this year and want to see some basketball and some football, the weekend of November 23rd, the week before Thanksgiving, that's the perfect time to do it.
All right. No, that's good notes. All right. We'll wrap up the show here with some conference realignment talk, but from a basketball standpoint, first off, well, I guess the big domino basketball-wise dropped this week. It was rumored, quickly shot down, but then came out of nowhere again. Gonzaga joining the Pac-12. I don't think they were ever serious of joining the Mountain West. So that brings some instability perhaps in the West Coast Conference. But the Mountain West did add UTEP. I did look up UTEP last year. Not great, 186 or so in the RPI or the net.
184, but we were 155, so not that much worse than us. 15-16 if you're only counting D1 games.
Yeah.
I don't know if we had any common opponents.
No, I didn't look. But we have a rich history with them, obviously. We were in the same conference.
Oh, we beat them last year.
We played UTEP?
Yeah, we beat them 78-67.
How do I not remember that?
I didn't either.
Okay. Well, there we go. Where did we play them? In Laramie?
No, we played them at the Sun Bowl Invitational.
Okay. I don't even remember that. Well, good for us. Okay.
Yeah. No, so I'm excited to see UTEP come back. We obviously had some great basketball games with them back in the day. They've been struggling for a while in football, but I mean, we feel that pain too. Not recently, but we've been there, and it wasn't that long ago. I'm excited to see UTEP come back. They're a natural rival for New Mexico. They're right down the road. Yeah, Clint, you're right. St. Mary's got an auto bid for the rest of the conference's existence. If we are going to go after a school for basketball only to balance Hawaii out, St. Mary's and Grand Canyon need to be 1-2 on the list.
Yep, and that's what I was going to get into next. So I don't know if there's going to be a tug of war. I don't know, who knows, right? On Twitter, you see stuff. Some random Pac-12 account was saying that St. Mary's and Grand Canyon are going to join the Pac-12. I don't know about that. I don't think they can afford to add too many schools because they're trying to maximize their TV dollars, and they're desperate because they're giving Gonzaga a full conference share, even though they don't have football, which I find insane.
Well, Gonzaga's bringing a lot of basketball credits to them.
Sure, they are, but to receive a full share when they're only going to be when they're missing the most, right? Basketball brings in a lot of money, but it still dwarfs what football brings in TV wise. So again, I don't know. I don't know if they can add too many more basketball only schools because then they got to start paying people.
Yeah.
And
so there was a graphic posted earlier today that Chad sent over. The Pac-12 is going to be really good at basketball. They're going to be really good at basketball, and there's a few reasons for that. Number one is they've got San Diego State, Gonzaga, Boise State, all in the same conference. Washington State last year was surprisingly good too. I think their net was like 44.
I saw that. Yeah, I was surprised. I wrote it down. Yeah, I've got Washington State at. Well, I didn't write it down, but yeah, it was up there. I was like, what?
Yeah, they went 24-9. I They won their first game against Drake and they lost to Iowa State in the second round.
Yeah, but the two schools that Clint mentioned, and which are reportedly on the Mountain West radar, they're reportedly after Grand Canyon and St. Mary's. I forgot about the net. I looked up RPI, but Grand Canyon was 23 in the RPI last year, and St. Mary's was 39. So again, if Wyoming could add just one of those schools, not Wyoming, if the Mountain West can just nab one to kind of counterbalance Hawaii as a football-only school, I think it'd be really good for the conference, obviously. And we'd still give you some good teams, Brian, because, right, we got New Mexico and Nevada were both top 30 last year.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got that dip to UNLV in the 60s. And then Wyoming is next up in the 150s. So this is it'd still be a decent league if you can add a little more schools who are, in the top 150. That'd be great. But I think if you're looking at this from a Wyoming perspective, if we get our stuff in order, we could be very good in this conference and be one of the elite schools.
Yeah. Well, and we can be one of the elite schools in the conference as it is now too. It's tough.
Sure.
But
you could.
We've been good in tough conferences before. I don't know if this is the year. I'm hopeful, but I'm not going to hold my breath. I am hyped for basketball, but I'm not hyped in basketball as a conference championship year. I'm hyped for basketball as a let's see how this goes kind of year.
We're just putting in the foundations, and we'll see. We'll see, and it's a whole new model, especially with this analytics. I'll be very interested to see if any interviews come out with this analytics guy, just to see kind of their philosophy. But I think we kind of know it. It's trying to use the numbers to find underappreciated guys, and that's what they did in the portal, like Cole Henry, Nesbitt, even Allen. Like Allen, they had the crazy stat. I think he was the only player who was 6'6" or taller who shot
with above a 40% 3-point percentage.
Yeah, and then with so many rebounds too. So they're looking for guys who do all around players, right? So just think about that, how hard. If you're not just a one-trick pony, if you got a core group in your rotation of 7 to 9 guys who are all roughly about the same talent level and do everything really well, just think about what that could do at altitude. And we'll see too. I think he's going to run. I think maybe once he gets things up and running, I think we'll take advantage of the altitude, and I think we'll run at a faster speed than we have under some of our coaches in the distant or the near past, I guess. Because I think, Wyoming's number one, I think, advantage obviously is the altitude. And if you can have a deep team of just people who are athletic and can run, you got to use that to your advantage.
Yeah. And one more thing, looking at our schedule, half of our games, are against D1 teams that made the postseason.
Wow.
Out of 32 games, we have 14 games against tournament teams and 2 games against UNLV, who was in the NIT.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be our schedule is brutal. I didn't look up what our strength of schedule is, but it's going to be up there. It's going to be a fun year to watch Mountain West basketball.
Yeah, right. And the only way to get better is to challenge yourself, and that's what this schedule is certainly going to do. We're going to see where our weaknesses are and see how they adjust with the different players that they got in the different pieces. So it's like a big puzzle. And we're going to learn together with Sundance Wicks on how it all fits together and how they compete. So, yeah, from that standpoint, it is exciting.
Yep. But only 23 days until the season opens with that College of Idaho game. We'll talk a little more about it as we get closer, kind of break down what College of Idaho looks like, what we're going to see from them, and we'll get the season kicked off right.
Yeah, and I don't think any TV stuff has been announced, right, for basketball at all.
Oh, College of Idaho is going to be streamed.
Yeah, it'll be streamed. I was going to say that game will be streamed on the website for sure. They'll do that in-house. But after that,
Concordia State, Paul. I don't know about Tennessee State yet. I think I've seen some TV, but I think it's only conference.
Yeah, I can't remember. I want to say the BYU game is going to be on TV somewhere. I don't know if they have it listed. Let me go to the website here really quick to see if it's got anything. Sometimes you can click on it and it will tell you, but yeah, there's no game time set. So there's nothing set. Like nothing has a game time set, which is interesting. So I'd imagine that stuff is being announced very soon. It's got to be.
Hey, we got the schedule earlier than we've got it in the last few years, so I was happy about that.
So yeah, so there we go. A little basketball talk with football and a bye week. And we'll see how it all shakes out.
It's going to be a fun year.
So, all right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Bryan, for all that great research. I know you have loads more, and we'll get to them as we cruise through the basketball season. We'll try to have weekly shows during the basketball season as well, which I think will be a good time, and we'll be able to work in some football recruiting, some women's basketball, and then if Shay and Brad don't do a wrestling show, I don't want to do the wrestling show because I can't say anything smart about wrestling. But
hey, tell you what, put me and Shay and Brad on any given Wednesday during the winter sports season, and we'll just talk basketball and wrestling. We'll be in good shape.
There we go. Yeah. So, all right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to subscribe and like to spread the word. And yeah, we'll be back midweek next week as we look forward to Wyoming hosting San Diego State in football. And we'll see what kind of news comes out. We might have some basketball news. We might have some TV stuff by then. Conference realignment. Who knows? It's a long time. In the news cycle, 7 days is a long time. So we'll have plenty to talk about for sure. Yeah. So for Bryan Stevens, I'm Chad Smith. Thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you next week.
Go Pokes.